The narrative of Libya is a sobering reminder in the stormy annals of recent history of the far-reaching effects of geopolitical maneuvering and the persuasiveness of Western propaganda. The story of Libya's collapse, from Colonel Muammar Gaddafi's once relatively stable country to a shattered and war-torn state, is a terrifying illustration of the effects of foreign intervention and media manipulation. This movie will explore the complex mechanics of how Western propaganda was crucial in the deconstruction of Libya, and even more puzzling, how it evaded international scrutiny and accountability. He threatened to go door to door to exact punishment, likening them to rodents. Following a United Nations resolution in February 2011, urging all necessary actions to defend Libyan citizens from Muammar Gaddafi's forces, Libya saw a radical transformation. This came about in the wake of months of political unrest in a number of Arab nations, notably Tunisia, Egypt, and Yemen. The phrase Arab Spring was rapidly used by Western media to describe these uprisings, assuming that they were revolutions against dictatorships and repression. However, the moniker Arab Autumn would be more appropriate given that it was the sad self-immolation of a poor street vendor in Cairo who could no longer put up with the constant persecution she received from the local police that set off the revolutions in Tunisia. On the other hand, the younger generation, which was protesting unemployment and corruption, was the main source of the Tahrir Square demonstrations against the Mubarak administration. Their demands were clear and concise. They wanted social fairness, job prospects, and the ability to live regular lives. In Libya, on the other hand, although the initial conditions were similar, the forces that led to the civil war were very different. Libya in 2011 had a different political environment than Egypt and Tunisia. Libya's relatively tiny population of 6 million people experienced a reasonably decent standard of living, exceeding expectations and even surpassing countries like Yemen or Lebanon, while being ruled by the autocratic and controversial figure Muammar Gaddafi. The country's thriving oil and gas sector, which employed a sizable percentage of the trained labor force and enhanced the well-being of its citizens, was principally responsible for its success. Gaddafi's tight control over political and economic affairs, which was upheld by a network of allegiance built over time through alliances, nepotism, and financial incentives, allowed for this affluence. Muammar Gaddafi continued to hold power for an incredibly long period, beginning in 1969, when he masterminded the coup that resulted in the establishment of the Arab Republic of Libya. Gaddafi progressively improved ties with the West after a string of conflicts with the US in the 1980s. He had established himself as a strong head of state by the early 2000s, and some European leaders came to an unwritten understanding. You will not create problems associated with migration, and you will take a detached approach to governance. As a result, Libya saw comparatively little civil upheaval during that time. Dissension is mostly limited to radical groups. Still, the revolutions in Egypt and Tunisia had a strong effect on Qatar, one of the Gulf states. They thought it may be possible to overthrow Gaddafi's government from the outside, with the help of moderate Islamic groups in Libya. In an attempt to increase its power in the area, Qatar, as an emirate, presented itself on the international scene as a fervent supporter of the overthrow of the dictatorships in North Africa. The reasoning for this tactic was really simple. Relatively moderate and actively involved Islamic fundamentalist groups, like the Muslim Brotherhood in Egypt, received financial support and assistance from Qatar. This action demonstrated Qatar's strategic orientation, even though Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates saw it as an existential danger. Many were caught off guard by the events of February 16th and 17, which are often known as the Days of Wrath. This was especially true for experts who had long considered Libya to be one of the most stable nations in the region. Even Muammar Gaddafi was taken aback by what was happening and responded in confusion. The spark sprang in the east, more precisely in Benghazi, in Cyrenaica. It became clear that the events in eastern Cyrenaica were more than just a straightforward uprising. They carried a complexity that went beyond a small-scale uprising. This was supported by concrete proof, such as coordinated acts and a significant quantity of weapons in circulation. These elements unquestionably suggested the existence of a well-thought-out plan. Remarkably, some European nations, the French and British governments in particular, promptly extended their support to the insurgents. Bernard Lévy, a close advisor and friend of Nicolas Sarkozy, in particular, convinced him that there was a rare chance to remove Gaddafi from power in Libya during the so-called Arab Spring. The French might have been able to enter a profitable market in the energy and military sectors with such a move. About the Libyan situation, a story started to spread on radio, TV, newspapers, and the airways. The underlying assumption of this story was that Gaddafi's government was brutally and bloodily quelling a non-violent, popular movement. This story began in Qatar, which repeatedly sent images of bloodshed, destruction, rage, and death to such an extent that it managed to convince the people of Europe that Gaddafi had instigated a massacre in order to maintain his privileges and hold on to power. Thank you. All right. Thousands of civilians were killed when the Libyan Air Force struck Cyrenaica's cities randomly, according to news reports from Qatar. In addition, the media covered mercenaries that were purportedly working for Gaddafi. They were said to have been given Viagra, and were charged with executing raids and sexual attacks against the populace. It's crucial to remember, though, that there was no hard proof to support these claims. Paradoxically, the media claimed that the Air Force had raided a civilian population in Cyrenaica after the military had reportedly bombarded the area. Additionally, it was claimed that the Air Force bombed a civilian population in Cyrenaica after the military had struck the same area. Most Libyans who made the decision to not actively participate in the EU prisons did so out of fear of possible retaliation from the regime. Due to this inaction, Gaddafi's forces were able to quickly retake most of the country in a couple of weeks, and they moved quickly to put an end to the uprising by moving toward Benghazi. The rebels in Cyrenaica, facing almost certain loss, appealed to the Western powers for military help. NATO and the United States unwillingly became involved in a short-lived but incredibly effective war in March of that year. This was a major military operation. Explore the rich tapestry of human history, vibrant cultures, and the rise and fall of civilizations with us. Dive into the fascinating stories, traditions, and discoveries that have shaped our world. Whether you're a history enthusiast, a culture connoisseur, or simply curious about the past, our channel is the perfect place for you. Don't forget to hit that like button if you enjoy the content, share it with fellow history buffs, and subscribe to join our journey through time. Stay tuned for weekly videos that bring history, culture, and civilization to life in a whole new way. Thanks for watching, and let's embark on this captivating exploration together.